shared those with you, and each of the work streams has something to say. So with no further delay, we'll start with the technology work stream. Mike.
So the basic status of the technology work stream is we basically lost track of it basically since September or so we're kind of starting over. So our short-term goal is to get back on track. I'm going to take over as the leader of the work stream. So what we talked about today is how do we get back on track? So we're going to reconnect with the original team, see who still wants to be involved. I took that action. We're going to consolidate the documents that had been created into Basecamp. CC is doing that. I'm going to connect with Cassie and staff and make sure that we get her in the loop on this. We came up with a meeting series. We're going to meet Mondays at 8:30. I'll get that actually scheduled when I get home. And we're going to review the existing charter minutes and use cases that were developed in the work in September, August timeframe. So the team's all going to review that. We're going to get back together on the 22nd, start a weekly meeting series to establish goals, rewrite the charter, and get the work back on track. Any questions?
So Mike, so in our group, we're going to need to connect you two for your team as we define values that could come out of what can we offer our chapters or our groups. Technology stuff could be some of that, right? How to help with websites or something. So should we connect directly to you?
Yes. Yeah, any kind of steering, any meeting that's happening, I'd like to be involved.
Other questions? Okay, thank you. The second team was culture of communication. Tony.
My fans. The communication team also found a lull in the latter part of 2023, and so our leaders to step up will include Mark Andromedis from Rocky Mountain District and yours truly, Tony Sparks from Rocky Mountain District, to work in tandem to manage the activities of the team. There was a lot of good groundwork that was done, however, in 2023, including some documents about best practices for communication and some work on persona. So what I want to do is talk about 3 goals that we established for the first half of this year. Number 1, we will evaluate and craft distinct barbershopper personas in order to effectively communicate with our membership by February 28th. It will result in a distinct but yet identified number of persona so that we can communicate effectively and non-offensively with people in the way they need to be communicated. And by February 28th, we want to define those so that starting the next month, our second goal will be to craft messaging protocols based on best practices that reach all member persona in a non-offensive way by April 30th. So 2 more months to put that together, some messaging protocols. The measurable outcomes for that will include defined language and communication cadences and methods. Then the third goal will be to work with the technology group. Got that? Starting in May. To implement and roll out the communication protocol in a society-wide replicable manner. So this will include international, district, chapter, and member type communications by June 30th. So these are 2-month cadences, speaking of cadences. The measurable result will be a toolbox for effective communications that we can all use. And then the second half of the year, which I didn't get to discuss with the group, but I discussed with Don, is the realization that all this is on outgoing communication at this point. So the second half of the year, we'll turn our attention to the remainder, the incoming communication. How do we deal with communication coming at us to complete the cycle? So we will address considerations for incoming communication to complete the cycle and culture of effective communication in the second half of 2024. questions on that. Yes?
I have a question. So when you're talking about the communication piece of this, and I get working with technology, is this strictly, oh, you really want me to get on the mic?
So, so my question is this a communication tool that's being used or communication protocol being used from district to district as a networking in that sense that there's a standardized way of communication amongst districts as well as within the district?
I would say the intent is to address all methods of communication. It's not so much about exactly how you do it, what you do, but how you do it. What is agreed upon acceptable language to use and means to reach the people in a way they want to be reached. How often would you send emails, for instance? Do you text or not? What kind of response do you want? Will you do surveys? So all across, it would be member to member, chapter to chapter, chapter to district, district to international, hopefully all the way around. But it's mostly the culture, the category is called the culture of communication, rather than, the nuts and bolts of it. Does that make sense?
No, it makes sense.
No.
It makes sense. Yes.
There you go.
Yeah.
See, there's effective communication
Yeah,
right
that's
there.
communication right there.
All right, everybody can be quiet now.
Yeah.
So with that being said, right, let's say it's developed, help me understand then the vehicle, or how does it become, and maybe that's not your path, maybe someone else is gonna.
I would say that would be goal 3 at our implementation phase, working with the technology group. And by the way, this would also include communications with the board and staff all along the way. We would like this to be, all of us involved with it, not just us saying, here's what we think, but we'll do all the legwork. Yes, sir.
You know what, maybe I don't maybe I could clarify this. We want a better communication between BHS, the districts, and its members.
Yeah.
And that's what we feel we've been tasked with to assist in that.
Okay.
By using technology. So we expect this toolbox that we put together, we're hoping that anybody and everybody will use it.
Okay.
And there'll be certain ways to address, and that's what the goal is. We see the need for better communication between all of us. Because after all, the thing that we have in common is music. And that's what brings us together. So that's what we want to do, is we want to communicate with each other since we all have the same interests.
All right.
And the very first thing that came in our discussion today was that every chapter or entity, district or international or whatever, may function differently, but can still be within an agreed cultural model. But, the communication will vary depending on what you're trying to do. And that the consolidated resources, i.e. the toolbox, can be available to reflect the desired model. That's the hope. And it's not like we have all the right answers, but we want to do the work to come to something that seems like
No,
makes sense.
that's great that you want to do the work. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, Tony.
Come on, Kenny, thank you very much. All right, and our next contestant.
If they mention technology, I'm gonna volunteer for a visit group.
Now, we're gonna talk about pilots next.
Thank you, Squire. All right, the pilot stream. We actually did reasonably well last year, specifically because we had 2 people, Jay and Don, who were spending an awful lot of time with the BHS world, so we were given a lot of information about what was going on. And yet, in the coming year, what we hope to do is basically, I'm going to assume a greater role in this and give Jay and Don time to focus on other things. The issue that we have had, because we are so diverse, we are literally on the East Coast, West Coast, and places in between, is finding good times to meet, and we have settled on 7 o'clock in the morning Pacific time, which allows us to get people engaging, but we're going to be meeting on a much more regular basis. The other issue is the one that we brought up briefly this morning, in that we have been asking chapters to come tell us what their ideas were for pilots. So what we have agreed to do as a team is we are going to test several hypotheses within our team meetings and agree upon the ideas we want to take back to chapters, and then we are going to target within our districts chapters who exhibit some of the issues that are there, and we are going to force feed an idea back to them and see if they can work it through. Our goal for 2024, we have 6 now. We want 10 active pilots by the time we come back to international. And our goals will be to target the chapter, but we also have to figure out the categories of chapters, because we have competing chapters, non-competing chapters, social chapters, and a range of everything in between. So we don't want these pilots to be representative of any specific style of chapter, but rather the broader group of chapters, of whom 2/3 are not participating in contests and conventions at this point. So our goal then is that, in order to do that, we the pilot team, need a few things. Number one, we need to list the services that we can offer to them, and we need to know what the cost of those services is. And from that, we can derive what we should be willing to charge. That's the financial model. There are other models, like one hypothesis is if we took a chapter that was struggling and did a force feed of team leadership and taught literally in a very short period of time, taught leadership to every single member of their leadership team and stepped back, what would happen? That is a hypothesis that needs to be proven or disproven. So that's our approach. Thoughts, comments, complaints? Yes, ma'am.
Oh, wait. Thank you, appreciate it.
For those of you that don't know me, my name is Maria Christian, and I serve on the board. I just want to make sure some of you are new faces, so please make a point to say hi at some point this week, if not today.
She'll be at the bar.
I'll be at the bar. You can buy me a bourbon. Okay, now that we've established the ground rules, when we're talking about the pilots and the implementation of those, are you also looking at the time frame of implementing proposed ideas, and then the expectations of when you think those proposed ideas create an impact? So if we're implementing in 2024, are you looking for results then in 2025, 2026? Because some things do take time to develop.
Fair question. The intent was we were looking for initial results in 2024 to feed back to BHS so they could figure out whether or not how it fits into the new model that they've done. Our goal is to integrate our results into the model that was presented this morning. So we would hope to get results in 2024 for implementation in 2025. Yes, sir.
To your point earlier, Jay, about we only got a handful of pilots going and we wanted to get more going. Do you have a list published after you've categorized them? Like, what kinds of chapters do we have already? What kinds of chapters do you need, and for what kinds of pilots?
We can, for sure.
Yeah, that would help.
It's a good point. We have 6, so we just need 4 more, right? So we'll give you an idea, like, where are the ones we have so far? Absolutely, that'd be good. And also, Maria, just to add to Bill's comment about the timeline, which is right, we're hoping is that piloting, the concept of doing pilots can live for a long time. So if we have a culture of more continuous improvement versus wait 83 years and let's make a big jump, then we could check, you could test things along the way without just intellectualizing, here's a good answer, let's see if we can make this go. And so we think this could work. Let's find 8, 10 places where we could test it, get the data one way or the other, good, bad, doesn't matter, we're learning, and then make the decisions based on that. So right now it's a new thing for us to think about piloting, but my personal hope is that we take that concept and just use it going forward, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, Kevin.
Thanks. So I love the idea what you talked about here. We're coming up with hypotheses. So I got really excited about that. One of the things that I've learned in my journey, and you hear it on Shark Tank, is the idea of testing assumptions versus testing products. So as you design a new product, why are you designing a new product? Because we believe there's an assumption out there that there's demand. And when the sharks don't believe it, they go, how are you basing that? So I think this is great. Make sure that we're testing the hypothesis versus testing the solution.
Agreed. To the pilot team, anybody got a problem with that one? Good.
It's harder.
It's obviously harder. Bill, go ahead.
Bill, you referenced twice or three times the term force feed.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Well, don't be
You go.
sorry. I just want to make sure that that's not actually part of the plan.
No, it's not. That's hyperbole on my part.
On the other hand, though, is there any, now I'm going to use a word that's equally wrong, any enforcement? You're going to offer these opportunities to chapters? What if they say, no, no thanks?
Then we have other chapters. In Evergreen, for example, I have 47 chapters over 2 million square miles. People in Red Deer, Alberta are going to be different than people down in Eugene, Oregon. And I'm going to find we have lots of opportunities. The more opportunities there are than there are projects.
Okay.
But to your point, one of the things you can't read down here is that we need to agree on metrics for success.
Excellent.
Yes, sir.
Hi, you don't know me, I'm Tim Myers, I'm with the board. I like the idea how you want to categorize this, but I just want to make a suggestion that you also look at categorizing it another way. A 60-person competitive chorus has different problems and opportunities than a 60-person social chorus.
Correct.
So they're the same size, you had divided them by size when you first described it.
No.
But we divide by competing,
Sorry, you divide by competing, non-competing, et cetera, but not necessarily by size. So if you were to do a 60-person social and an 8-person social, they're both social, but they have completely different challenges between those two. 120-person competitive versus a 120-person community are completely different things. So I just want to recommend that you look 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional on that, because I think you can get a better cross-hatching of what your community, your singing communities look like.
Got it, we will do so.
Isn't it true that the pilots kind of come from the suggestions of the choruses? That's how we've been approaching it. We go to our chapters and say, what would make you feel like you're more successful?
Right.
Come up with it.
That's the way we have, that's the way we have done it to this point. Because,
Tony, that's precisely what we have done to this point, and because we have had limited success, one of the ways we are going to try to move forward is to articulate some hypotheses and then offer them to various chapters and see if they can bite that way. Okay? Questions? Yes, sir.
I think that that's a much good approach, and I'm really glad that you guys have decided to do that, because a lot of chapters don't know. We go to them and ask them, what do you see as a new model? And they'll look at you and go, I don't know. So I think that this is a good approach, and that gets into the word force feed, where I think that it's just a matter of suggesting this is available. Would you consider trying this and see what results you get? I think that that's a very wise approach.
Yep. Much gooder. I like the way you said it.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Other questions, comments, complaints? Slings and arrows?
Thank you very much. Round of applause for the pilot. And last, the leadership development team.
If you want to do it, Dan. We're going to start off with questions for Maria, just to get them All right, the leadership development team. The leadership development team has been working together for a bit over a year now, and when we met first at Midwinter last year, what we were talking about aligned so closely to what this team was doing that we decided to incorporate the team into the value exchange discussion. So the team is Greg Catano, myself, Dan Rovit, Rob McDonald, Terry Reynolds, and Steve Wesmersky. This group, again, has been meeting regularly every Sunday evening for the last year or so. There are 4 overall goals that the team is working on, which is really no different than what we discussed with the DP folks just before the breakouts, but for the sake of the board that's here as well, I'll go through those again. The first is we have developed, it is just waiting to be incorporated into Salesforce. So there's no work that is left to be done on a chapter health assessment. So we need something that is automated, that doesn't require someone to go into a chapter, anyone to write an email, a phone call. It is just simply an assessment that says there are more ways to be successful than membership numbers and score in contests. So of all of the other ways that you can be successful, how do you measure up in those? And it's just a simple, how many questions is it, 20 questions or so? 20 questions that you go through. Some of the questions are actually a bit complicated as it relates to your chapter finances and things like that, but what it will do is it will kick you back a response afterwards that says, wow, you're thriving in these areas, and the places where they're not, we have already drafted a number of thought out suggestions if they're interested in getting better in those areas where they are not thriving. This is ready to go, but it was going to be released maybe 6 months ago through a third-party software, and when we found out that we could incorporate this into Member Center, we're just waiting for our staff to have the time to incorporate that, which is currently being worked on and should be ready to go end of Q1. The second one, which is also ready to go and up and running right now, is the Barbershop Expert Network, which is simply a subject matter expert database that lives right now on Member Center. It is live, it is working. The only thing that it doesn't have is the subject matter experts. So we've worked with C&J to get any of our judges that want to be in this database, and that has already been taken care of. The next step is that Dan and I will be working with you as district leaders to say, who do you have in your district that would be interested in doing this? We're also going to our Harmony University faculty list and asking all of them to put their names in. The interesting thing about